You are listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
And we're back with another edition of The Breakdown on Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Matt Hamilton. That's Matt Cassel. Matt, how'd you enjoy the bye week? Just getting to enjoy some of that wild card action around the league.
Oh, it was great, man. I enjoyed my bye week. At the same time, we had a lot of volleyball tournaments this weekend. So in between, I'm on the phone watching these games, and there are some incredible games that went on, but also there's some incredible competition going on over there at the TPV for the girls volleyball tournament. Let's go.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the volleyball as much as everybody else enjoyed that wild card action. But one of the best games of the weekend, the most stunning outcome of the weekend, was the Jaguars coming back from that 27-0 deficit to knock off the Chiefs' AFC West rivals, the Chargers. And that's going to be Kansas City's opponent. They're hosting Jacksonville this weekend. What stood out to you about what we saw from the Jaguars in that comeback?
It's pretty incredible and remarkable that they're able to come back. Obviously, they're down 27-0 in the second quarter, and that's in big part due to the 5 turnovers, 4 interceptions by Trevor Lawrence. And when you look at it, when you're in that type of position, how does your team respond, right? Because it's easy to spiral out of control, especially against a playoff opponent. The LA Chargers got a big lead. They've got a good team as well. But it started with that 2-minute drill at the end of the half. Jacksonville went down, scored, and maybe got a little bit of momentum, maybe a little bit of confidence going back in. And then they made halftime adjustments. And when they came out in the second half, Trevor Lawrence was a different player. And I'll tell you from experience, look, I've been in games, I've thrown 4 interceptions. It's so difficult to do, to change your mindset and to be able to recover mentally more so than anything else, regain that confidence going into the second half after you know that you've had such an atrocious first half and nothing's really gone right. And so he came out, and like he's done all year, this group is resilient. The defense stepped up, got the stops that they needed to. They shut down the run game against the Chargers, and then 3 straight possessions, 3 straight touchdown drives. Then at the final drive was able to set up that run with ETN to go down and kick the game-winning field goal. It just all worked in the second half. It was unsurmountable odds, but they were able to do it. And when you look at this Jacksonville team, right, Hamilton, I mean, they've been doing it all season long. They erased 17-point deficits, I think, against Dallas and Oakland. They erased a 9-point deficit against the Baltimore Ravens in the fourth quarter this year. And then even in the last game of the year for the divisional title against the Tennessee Titans, they're down 10 points in that game. So the one thing about Jacksonville that you can count on is that they're not giving up. They're always going to try to fight and be in the game. And that's the interesting part about this team, because if they eliminate those mistakes, maybe that wasn't even as close of a game as what it was.
Yeah, and you look at it, their last 5 home wins, they trailed by double digits in every single one of them. And it speaks to Doug Peterson and what he's been able to do with this team. And as you mentioned, with Trevor Lawrence, that's a nightmare scenario. You can't, in your playoff debut after a rough rookie season with Urban Meyer, to come out and have everything go against you like that. It's hard to imagine a worse situation to be put in. And, even if you just battled back and had a strong game and they end up losing, it's impressive. But to do what he did and basically not miss for the entire second half and pull off an absolute miracle, it just speaks to his mental toughness and his composure. And that's something that he's definitely going to need this weekend going into Arrowhead, because that's a place that's definitely going to test your composure. As we know, the Jaguars, this is not their first trip there. So, they got a little taste of the Arrowhead experience earlier this year. And it was also a game, you talk about their resilience. It's a game they got down 20-0 in back in week 10, and they battled back. It ended up being a 27-17 Chiefs win. But again, this is a team that doesn't quit. They battled back in it. The Chiefs, took that 20-0 lead into halftime. You figure, this is going to be an easy one, but this team just doesn't go away. We're going to dig into some of the footage from that game in a little bit and kind of walk you through just some of the things the Chiefs were able to do to exploit this Jaguars defense. But looking back on that game, Matt, what stood out to you, and where do you think the Chiefs have the advantage?
Well, I think offensively they played well throughout the course of the day. They were good in situational football, really good on third down, good in the red zone. They got off to a great start with a 20-point lead to start the game. But again, it could have been a lot more than that. You look at the first series of the game, Pacheco inside the red zone, he fumbled. And then all of a sudden, Jacksonville, again, at the end of the half, somehow they figured it out. They were able to go down, score some points before the half. They fumbled the kickoff return, miss a field goal. So that could have been a 10-point swing right there. And then you look even in the third quarter, early in the third quarter, Jacksonville's able to put together a drive, and Trevor Lawrence throws off a boot route. He throws to Zay Jones in the back of the end zone for a touchdown, but that's negated because they have a legal man downfield. Again, that takes points off the board. So this could have been even a closer game than what you think about. But offensively, all they have to do is really take care of the football. And that's really what it comes down to in this game. They got to win the turnover battle against this team. They can't have those mistakes that they've had sometimes throughout the course of the year, because this team is able to capitalize on that, and it also keeps them in the ballgame. Defensively, look, their pressure, Chris Jones and company, they've been outstanding. They've got to continue to do that. They had 5 sacks in the first game. That showed up big. But again, it's the big play opportunity. You saw Christian Kirk catch that one in the fourth quarter for a big play, and it's not giving up those big plays, because generally speaking, when you look at Jacksonville, when you look at this offensive unit, they're a horizontal passing game, right? They're going to try to get the ball there quick. They're going to be formationally diverse, bunches, stacks, and try to do the mesh rubs, and then those force protectors. I call them force protectors, but it's like 2 guys blocking out in front, hitting ETN on a swing pass and trying to get blockers out in front. So they've got to be good against that, like they were in the first game. They just can't give up the big plays, which they did at different points in that game.
And you're right. The one time we've seen the Chiefs get into trouble offensively this year is when they get a little bit of the turnover bug. Whether it's and sometimes it's come on special teams where they've had some key miscues, and sometimes it's come from Mahomes when he's trying to force things a little bit too much. And this Jaguars defense, while they'll give up some yards, they're incredibly opportunistic, and they create a lot of turnovers and big plays defensively as well. So that's something I agree with you. That's going to be a huge key for Kansas City here. But let's go back and let's go into the tape and look at a couple of the key moments in that game and what the Chiefs were able to do against this Jaguars D. Walk us through this one, Matt.
I love it. So it's a 2-by-2 formation. Kadarius Toney's down here on the stack. He gets a little bit of a head start. They short motion him in, right? And it's a boot action, right? So they're going to sell the zone to the left side of the formation. But Kadarius Toney, we used to call it flash. He's going to flash behind the line of scrimmage and try to get lost behind there. He's going to become the primary receiver, number 1 in the flat. So when you come off your fake, you're looking first to the guy in the flat. He's number 1. And then you've got Sky Moore right here. He's running that bench route in behind him. So he's creating that high-low on that cornerback. If the cornerback gives any depth whatsoever and Kadarius Toney's open, you give him the ball right now in space and let him do his thing. Then Justin Watson's on the crossing route, and at the very late leak here by Travis Kelce, he'll come back in as like a check down. But Kadarius Toney's wide open right here. He gives him the ball. He doesn't hesitate whatsoever, and he gives him the ball in space. And then Kadarius Toney, with his extreme athleticism and playmaking abilities, able to take it down the field, make a few guys miss. And I think this is the fun part about this game for me. It's Kadarius Toney's kind of coming out party, right? He had his first touchdown catch in this game. He was a big factor in this game. And then you also saw how diverse he can become in his skill set, whether it's a jet sweep, whether it's the boot, whether it's the catch down the sideline in the back shoulder where he goes up over two defenders. And he kind of proved that day that, hey, we might have something special here. We might have caught lightning in the bottle.
Yeah, and what I love here too is, we love when Mahomes can make things complicated and make some big plays, but he keeps it simple here. He's got a shot to throw that bench route to Sky Moore, and probably a decent chance of completing that, but you got 100% chance of completing that one to Toney, and with his playmaking ability, just get the ball in his hands and let him make a play. Not everything has to be the spectacular Patrick Mahomes show, and this is a sign of just, savvy quarterback play. Just get the ball to your playmaker, let him go.
Yeah, that's it. And they always would tell us, look, don't bypass an open wide receiver. Even though he's there and you might be able to throw that guy behind him for a bigger play, the high percentage throws right in front of your face, take it, move to the next play. And it worked out perfectly in this circumstance because he didn't hesitate whatsoever. He came off his fake. He knew he was number 1 in the progression, gave him the ball, and then good things happen.
And the Kadarius Toney show continued in this game. Later in the red zone, we saw him find the end zone. Walk us through this play.
Yeah, I just love how they utilize these guys' skill sets in different ways and gives us, the defense, so many different looks. So when you look at this play, they're going to jet sweep or give the impression that he's going to come across the motion on a jet sweep. And he actually becomes flare control down here at the bottom of the screen. But when you think about this actual read, you're going to free release Pacheco. And defensive structure, it's a too high defense. It looks like it's cover 4. And so you've got a stick route up top right there. You've got Pacheco coming out. He's going to kind of run the spot check down. So it's a left to right read, right? You've got the stick route if you like it. You're working those guys, but both those linebackers are present. They make it a tight window. Justin Watson's going to be running the crossing route to kind of come into that window over the top. And then Travis Kelce, I think he's got the end cut in behind it, but then he starts to feel like he's got nowhere to go, and he kind of breaks his route off to the opposite side. But I just love the fact that Mahomes right here goes through his progression. And when you see the defense, they get so caught up on the inside here, the Sam linebacker does right here with Travis Kelce and the safety, that nobody pushes through to go to the flat. And Kadarius Toney's wide open, but also his progression of going left to right, getting all the way out to his flare control and seeing this guy getting the ball in space for a walk-in touchdown.
And you mentioned it. You got to love the patience there going through his progressions. Obviously, great protection as well to buy him time to do that. But you see the influence of Travis Kelce as well. A lot of people are concerned, Kelce hasn't scored a touchdown in 6 games. What's going on? Well, this is what's going on. He's drawing a lot of attention down there. And it would only be concerning to me if the Chiefs offense was struggling in the red zone as a result. They're thriving because it's opening things up for other people with all that attention paid to Kelce, right?
Oh, you hit it right on the head. When you talk about Travis Kelce, not only is he the best tight end in the game, but even when he doesn't get the ball, what he does for this offense, he's the best decoy that you have because he demands attention on every single play. They circle him, when they're game planning for a team like the Kansas City Chiefs, they're circling him in the meeting saying, we can't let this guy beat us. But what does that do? It opens up other guys. And as you just saw, in that play right there, the linebacker gets stuck inside. The safety's got his eyes on Travis Kelce, and now nobody pushes through to the flare and the flat, which is just a blown coverage. And now you've got Kadarius Toney wide open.
And that's not the only example of that we saw in this game. You're going to see here on this last play, more attention being paid to Travis Kelce and it opening things up for somebody else. Walk us through this.
Yep, it's 12 personnel. You know that they like to use that variation in terms of the personnel group, but you've got Travis Kelce in a cut split down here at the bottom. You've got Noah Gray at the tight end position. You've got a slot up top, and you've got McKinnon offset to these 2 tight ends right here. So it's cover 4, but also what's interesting about this is they only rush 3. So they drop out Josh Allen to get one more guy in coverage on the second level. Now, when you see it, I love the route pattern and the concept. Kelce's going to run that seam down the middle, and he's going to get vertical in the defense right now. Noah Gray is going to come off his wake, and he's going to run the go route, but it's a spray release go off of Travis Kelce. So what happens is that Josh Allen right there, the Sam linebacker, is responsible for the flat. So he starts to push out with Noah Gray, but now he's got to carry him through the zone, and he doesn't. He drops him. So that creates just enough separation. And again, we talked about Travis Kelce being a decoy in this circumstance, but watch the corner and the safety. Both eyes are on them. He has no presence to drop back off into this seam coming behind him, and Mahomes is able to see it and deliver it for a touchdown.
And that little subtle shoulder fake there for Mahomes too, just to open that window a little bit more to get that ball into Gray. And it is a beautiful thing to watch. Beautiful play design. Even if Josh Allen doesn't take that little peek to the flat, that's an awful lot to ask your pass rusher to have to cover a tight end one-on-one, especially an athletic tight end like Noah Gray. Just perfect job from Andy Reid and company finding a way to exploit this Jaguars defense and the look that they knew they were going to get.
Right, and that's a big part of how they can utilize their personnel to get the matchup that they want, because in this circumstance, when you go 12 personnel and you've got big guys on the field and you can potentially run the football, they're in base defense. They're not in nickel defense right here. And that's a good thing because you get a lesser defender in space like Josh Allen, who they're trying to say, hey, look, you're athletic enough. You can go cover the flat. But again, he's not used to doing that on a consistent basis. He's an edge rusher that's going to come off the edge and come get the quarterback. And then that's when issues happen in terms of communication. And it opens up a guy down the field for a wide open touchdown.
Yep. And this was to give the Chiefs that 20-0 lead. Obviously, as we talked about, the Jags fought back a little bit and made this thing a game. But the Chiefs now coming off of that bye week, you always hope to get a little bit healthier. We've gotten some injury news this week. Sounds like Clyde Edwards-Helaire is his practice window has been activated. Obviously, the Chiefs have been getting great production out of their running back, so it's going to be interesting to see how he fits in if he is able to be active for Sunday. The other more concerning news is Mecole Hardman. They're now calling it went from an abdominal injury to abdominal illness, and now they're saying it's a pelvic injury, and it doesn't sound positive towards his return whatsoever. So I think we saw a lot of Kadarius Toney in that first matchup. I think that Kadarius Toney acquisition is going to be more important than ever now, because as we've said on the show multiple times, between Toney and Hardman, they need one of those guys out there to be able to do everything they need to do offensively. How do you see the Hardman injury, if he isn't able to return, impacting this offense going forward?
Well, again, Mecole Hardman is a guy that is incredibly explosive. He's another playmaker on this offensive unit. But at the same time, they've been functioning without him for a majority of the season now. So they understand, like, this is a situation with him. I'm sure that the medical professionals and everybody have kept Andy Reid and everybody up to date on what's taking place. So I'm sure that they were preparing ahead of time to not go in this game with Mecole Hardman, just based on his status and based on what was being said. And so they're just going to game plan as they normally do. And against Jacksonville the first time, they didn't have Juju Smith-Schuster in that second half, obviously, after the hit as well. So he'll be present. You got MVS, you got Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, Justin Watson, and then you've got the plethora of tight ends led by Travis Kelce. So they know what they want to do, and they can still use their different personnel sets, use their different formations, and also get Kadarius Toney the ball in a multitude of ways. You saw it even against the Raiders. He's lined up in the backfield. They hand him off the ball. You've got the jet sweep stuff. You got formationally, he's running routes on the outside. He's in the slot. There's so many different things that they can do, and there's nobody that does it better than Andy Reid in terms of game planning.
So I look at the Jaguars coming off of such an emotional win where they're basically dead and buried. I mean, they were dead and buried 10 weeks into this season at 3-7. They come back to win the division. Do you think I feel like this could go one of two ways for a team? I feel like either it's like you get that confidence of just invincibility when you've gone through what this team has gone through, but there's also that, like, you come off of such an emotional game to be able to then regroup and take on an opponent as tough as Kansas City. How do you think going through all of that just emotionally affects these Jaguars? Do you think we see a stronger effort, or do you think it might have taken something out of them?
Well, it was definitely an emotional effort, and it can take something out of you, and you kind of have to recover. But it's easier to recover from that emotionally taxing game when you win. And so everybody leaves that building, and I know that there's a lot of things for them to clean up and correct. But at the same time, they showed resilience. They played the way that they played in the second half, which built momentum and ultimately led to that win. And so they're probably thinking more about that. And also Doug Peters, when he's addressing the team, saying, hey, look, guys, we were able to overcome that, but if we make these same mistakes against the Kansas City Chiefs, it won't be close, right? We can't do it against one of the elite teams, if not the elite team in the NFL right now. So he's saying, but we can play a whole lot better than what we did. And all that starts with is taking care of the football, and doing what we've done throughout the course of the season to make us successful. And that's the only way in which we'll have a shot.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to ask you about is, as we talked about before, that first game also in Arrowhead. The Jaguars are a very young team overall. My personal experience when I was with Missouri, I remember in 2006, it was Chase Daniel's first year as a starter. I was working with the quarterbacks as a student coach, and we went into Nebraska and that sea of red and that incredible environment, and it was just, we hadn't experienced anything like it before. We were super young. It was overwhelming. We got down 21-3 at half, and we're like, what the hell just happened? And then the second half, we settled down. We played better. And then the next time we went back in 2008, we just blew the doors off them. It didn't faze us at all walking into it. It was their homecoming game too. Like, just,
Right.
Once you have that experience of going into that type of environment, like the Jaguars did going into Arrowhead the first time around, do you think that's an advantage for Jacksonville and takes away a little bit of that home field edge that Arrowhead gives KC?
I don't think it takes away from the home field advantage because that place is special and it's going to be rocking. It's going to be electric. The fans are going to be out in full force and it'll be loud. But there is some advantage to the fact that they came there early in the season and they've competed on that field and they've seen the crowd and seen the environment, understand what is going to take place in terms of crowd noise and how to operate at the line of scrimmage and all those things. So you have an expectation now for what to expect when you walk into Arrowhead, and it won't be like the first time walking in going, oh my gosh, what in the world's about to take place right now, right? So there is an advantage to that because, again, they played this team early in the season, so they're familiar with all the different parts of the stadium and what to expect going in to play this game.
All right, so there you have it, guys. We hit about every angle of this matchup. Matt, I got to ask you, how do you think this one plays out? Do you think the Jaguars' magic stays alive, or are the Chiefs headed to yet another AFC title game?
I believe the Chiefs are headed to yet another AFC title game. They, the pressure, it feels like, is all on the Chiefs because of the expectation level, right? And so that's one thing that you always consider in terms of managing those expectations going into the game. But as long as they go out and play their game and they've got enough guys that have been battle tested and veterans on this team, particularly Patrick Mahomes, who's been through this situation, that I'm not worried about that. And I do believe that they'll get out and be able to put together some good openers and get to a fast start and put this team in that position where they're trailing from behind. And that's going to be a tough environment to come back from a big deficit.
Yeah, and even though we've seen them do it, it's hard to live by that formula week after week after week if you're the Jaguars. And I think the Jaguars are going to give them a game here. I think they've improved a lot since that first meeting. We've seen it. They're playing with house money right now. This is a team with a lot of confidence. As you said, the pressure is all on the Kansas City side. So I think Doug Peterson's going to have them loose. I think they're going to come out aggressively and give the Chiefs a heck of a game here. But I think the Chiefs hang on. I think, I see it being like a 30-27 type of a game, high scoring, a lot of action. But the Chiefs hang on, build a lead early, like you said, and hang on and come away with the win and head to yet another AFC title game. This one will be either in Atlanta if the Bills beat the Bengals on the other side, or in KC if Cincinnati's able to pull off the upset.
Yeah, I'm just going to go with everything that you just said because you broke it down beautifully, buddy. So I'm going to say 30-27, same thing. They're going back to the AFC Championship game, but I do believe that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to get it done in Arrowhead this weekend against Jacksonville, and finally Jacksonville's luck is going to run out.
Yeah, and if they do, it's going to be a heck of a show next week because whether it's the Bills or whether it's the Bengals, there's going to be so many storylines, so many matchups to break down. That's going to be about as good a football as you're going to get all year. So I can't wait. I don't want to get ahead of myself. The Chiefs have a lot of business to take care of because this is not going to be an easy game. But there's a lot to look forward to coming up ahead as well. So we'll be here to break it all down, win or lose. We'll be right back here next week. For Matt Cassel, I'm Matt Hamilton. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and enjoy the game this weekend.